Thanks for taking time to meet. I've got really simple, two simple questions, and I want to just listen and hear your thoughts. But also, you may have thoughts about personal qualities, experience, skills, training, the whole 9 yards.
We need leadership that can pull our community together. I understand that the modern university president has to attend to money and legislators nearly full time, but EIU also needs someone to help us unify around two issues: recruitment and making the campus welcoming to all the students we bring to it. I know some will say that they don't want someone who's going to move on, myself, i.e. Angela. I'd be happy to find someone mid-career who sees EIU as a chance to prove him or herself.
Enrollment, the budget issues, and community relations, at least helping the community be more welcoming of EIU students, particularly minorities. In terms of the qualities that I think would be important for a university president here, in the last few that I've known, my time at Eastern, they've been very person-oriented and student-centered, and have been through the academic ranks.
Many of our students, particularly our students of color, our gay and lesbian students as well, I felt a lot of tension from community members, particularly our students of color, given some comments that were written last year, actually almost exactly a year ago, on the Charleston Police Facebook page that were really hateful, really hateful. They would actually count as hate speech. Mm-hmm. So students of color in particular haven't felt particularly welcome here. However, if you also talk to students, they also feel as if the university needs to do a better job of bridging between campus community and the Charleston community at large.
So it's kind of the students in general would feel that there is the right kind of relations with the town.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they navigate the town too, right? They're community members as well, and so they don't feel like there's a clear connection between community and campus, particularly revolving issues of race. Yeah. But also our GLBTQ students have felt similarly. Sure. Some of our gay and lesbian students, and actually this is more campus community as well, have felt ostracized at one point. They would be walking past apartment buildings, bottles were thrown at them. One of my students was actually jumped.
This is so recent, it's fairly recent.
Over the past couple of years, but in particular in terms of race relations with community and campus, that really escalated this past year.
And what has happened since then? Have there been actions taken, et cetera? I would assume.
Go ahead.
Sure. Immediately after the students organized first, and they organized a series of town hall meetings to which they invited administrators and faculty and students. The first one had hundreds of people show up. It was really, and some folks from the community as well. A couple of mayoral candidates came. And the students, I think, did a really wonderful job of organizing these events and using them to try to get their voices heard. After that, the current president and his administration put together a task force, and we met for about 6 months, I would say, and put together some suggestions for plans of action. And then that task force was an ad hoc task force, and its charge was done. And a new committee was formed of folks who were going to work on a kind of town-gown relations system. I think that folks feel hopeful about that, but the folks on those committees are largely people with a lot of
faculty members that are well-versed in all kinds of areas, and that is not tapped into, for one, well enough, in the surrounding communities, and it's not advertised well enough, so people don't know beyond our own, UPC, DPCs, all the amazing work that goes on here. So that's a, it's a two-parter thing.
Yeah.
One is we have to get the word out, and two, we have to establish some systems for allowing faculty to, perhaps function as community scholars or as
Resources.
more directly as resources.
It will always be said that, I think from a faculty perspective, that president must have a commitment to shared governance. And that, I'll repeat that, that's an essential quality, and not just something that's a lip service, but something that's a real mission. I think that a president will need to have a willingness to have leadership in making bold moves to make sure that they have the right administration underneath them, that where they can work with to make sure that the board of trustees and the president's ideas or mission for the institution in collaboration with shared governance.
So their team, their direct reports and the like. Yeah.
Exactly. Related to that, I think, is to make sure that that leadership also makes sure that those administrators have the necessary skills and competencies to, in a sense, do that job, to be successful in that mission. And, where that isn't perhaps available, to first rely on the faculty who have expertise to work with the administration on a number of things that are necessary before running out and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on external consultants,
Right.
whose work really may not be as
Yeah.
good as what we could have done ourselves.
Sure. Absolutely.
So that's a critical element.
Money is, and joint legislature is a big, important, and in my opinion, the most important job of the president. A president, she can do all the things that have been mentioned and be a good leader and all those things, but a lot of those things also are going to be functions that will be, that person will be there as to kind of get the ball rolling and put commitment behind those ideas. But the president is the one who really has to go to the legislature and convince the legislature that we need this money to go to donors and, the money. And that is, I think, really frankly, the single most, and by a wide margin, preliminary step for any of these other kinds of things.
The mission of the university is to be accessible to the citizens, and we do understand that. But the next leader would also have to commit, in my opinion, to quality. What are we here for? There are a lot of students here that really do belong in community college that are not well prepared. So how do we handle that?
So that would be the quality of students just sort of coming in
The
general.
admission standards.
Admission.
What are we looking at? Where do we draw the line? Who should be in community college and who should be at a four-year institution?
About a year ago, I participated in a public forum on a completely unrelated issue. And that meeting was in some way taken over by people from the local area who turned it into a kind of forum on race relations.
Wow.
And it got quite ugly. And I had never seen anything like that before. And I wouldn't want to see it again.
About 10 years ago, there was a decision that was made that the campus needed to become more diverse. And so there was tremendous effort by admissions to increase the number of minority students that came here. Those efforts were to some extent successful, but it's also the case that to some extent that led to some of the perceived erosion of standards, because students who didn't meet our admissions standards were admitted anyway in order to increase diversity. What has happened since then is our white enrollment has plummeted.
To have this analogy that because we have unprepared African Americans here, the white enrollment is eroding is truly
No, I didn't mean to say that. I was. That's the perception that the community has.
Then we have to do a better job of correcting that misperception.
The problem we had in relation to enrollment other than these issues, town-gown issues, is lack of shared governance with the faculty. We are supposed to have an enrollment management advisory committee with faculty representation. For reasons unknown at this point, that committee ceased to meet right around the time our enrollment started to drop.
Which by the way, was what, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah,
Or something?
that's supposed to be a standing committee. I used to serve on it. And for reasons that have not been explained, the powers that be chose not to even convene that committee while the problem was developing. When they most needed faculty
I was
input,
just going to say,
they
when you have a
closed
problem, you
it
want more
off.
resources and more people.
And that also is indicative of a larger problem, in my opinion. There has been for a long time a kind of silo culture on this campus where each vice president is allowed to do whatever he or she wants to do, regardless of what the overall mission of the university is, and in many cases, what they do is not constructive